Hey gangs, thanks for joining us on our first episode of Get Help Hangouts. Before we get started, I just want to go through some technical things with you guys. We will be taking questions and stuff. If you want to view this page or the video in a larger screen, just click on the YouTube link at the very bottom there. It'll put it in, take you over to YouTube, and you'll have a larger screen to play with. You can also leave your comments right here on the event page or within the YouTube page itself. As well, if you have any questions, bit.ly/gethelpanswers. Apparently, Trevor didn't catch the typo yet. It's bit.ly gethelpanswers for any questions you have. It's a Google Doc, so feel free to put in whatever questions you want, and during the show, we'll try and answer them. Our show notes you can get from bit.ly/gethelpshownotes. We'll be putting all our notes in there, and you can take a look at anything that we've done in the past, or we will be doing hopefully soon. Just one thing I want to mention, that we are also going to be talking about or doing a quick little poll for what do you plan on charging for your, or do you plan on charging for your training right away. If you open up a new tab, go to www.govote.at, enter the numbers 993897. You can put yourself and vote, and we'll take a look at the survey a little later to see how things happen. The reason we're doing it this way is it's a learning moment. When I created the Hangout, I did it through YouTube. If you create the Hangout through YouTube, it does not give you access to the audience tools like Showcase and Q&A. This would have been much better if we'd done it through Q&A. However, this is what happens. And I'm going to turn this over to our host now.
Hi everyone, my name is Nick Cusumano. I am a theater and film teacher, a Google Education Trainer, and also hold the Innovator, Administrator, and Educator Level 1 and Level 2 certifications. So I like to say I have the Google Quadfecta of certifications. And you may recognize me if you are a trainer from the example video, except I have a beard now. And I want to take a moment to introduce all our panel today. Joining us also is Allison Mollica. She is a Google Education Trainer for local schools and organizations, as well as global Google Summits and events. She's been a trainer since 2011 and an innovator since 2014. She is a virtual instructor in New Hampshire Online Public High School, VLACS. And then joining us from the north is Trevor Beck. He's a longtime Mac guy and Google evangelist for MacEwan University in Canada. He has been a certified trainer since 2014, and he's especially passionate about spreadsheets, but rarely touches numbers. And then we have a special panelist joining us for this, and that's Jenny Reynolds. She's the program manager for Google for Education and oversees the Google for Education Certified Trainers, and will be sharing some great resources with us and answering some of the questions I've been emailed today and that have been on the Google group. So we will get those answers to you today, and she's going to talk about the EDU Activity app, which is, I know, an important thing that all of us use and helps Google a lot to help figure out where their focus should be. And so we'll let the panel say hi. And just to give a quick introduction, so earlier this week we did the onboarding for the Q1 Google for Education trainers, and everyone else left the onboarding, and Allison, Trevor, and I stayed on for about an hour and brainstormed, and we know that Google Education trainers have a lot of questions, and sometimes typing on the Google group gives you some answers, but hearing face-to-face and giving some context is very helpful. So we wanted to start this process, and so watch for this to happen monthly. And very excited that we even have a Googler joining us. It's like going on the safari and seeing the the prized animal. They're out there. We know they are, but sometimes we don't get a chance to see them all the time. Which we're very happy Jenny's able to join us. So wanted to talk about the panel. What types of trainings have you done or have done since you became a trainer? Allison, you want to take that?
Sure. Okay, so as part of, just wanted to highlight too, as part of this particular first show, is we'll focus on what types of trainings we do and how we plan for them and how we, some of the key components we include in those. So when I became a trainer in 2011, I started out by being asked by other districts to come and assist, maybe do a workshop at a local event they were doing. And then I did the Google Summits circuit for a while, so I would put in for sessions to present, and I would mainly train on things that I was currently doing in the classroom that I was super passionate about at the time. And it was easy to do, because when Google came along, I was like, whoa, this is like rocking my world. And by a means of doing that, I ended up being hired. So it wasn't that I became a trainer and I put a shingle out, but it was really that it did help vault my career. I really got a lot more exposure in the directory, but I think the first trainings I did were putting myself out there at conferences. And then by having my name out there and sharing online and doing presentations, I was then contacted by schools quite often to do workshops and professional development as a paid trainer.
And Trevor, can you kind of tell us your role since you became a Google for Education trainer?
Sure thing. I work in a web services department, so I look after our web pages and stuff. And this actually, being a trainer, Google trainer, is not even really part of my official job. It's something I try and fit in there because I'm very passionate about it. We've had access to these tools for a couple of years, but like a lot of places, there they are. Go with it, learn on your own. And I knew people weren't going to take those steps to try and discover the stuff on their own. So I was in a meeting one day after about a year of doing this, and finally the chief technology officer said, Trevor, you can be the Google evangelist. And I went, ooh, I like that title. So that is my official title, is Google evangelist. What I'm trying to do, because it's so hard with faculty at the university level, and especially because we get some people that show up for a little while and take off and that, I usually do 1 3-hour session, which I call a taste of Google Apps, because all I want them to understand is here are some of the advantages that you can get by doing collaboration online. Get rid of those silly Word documents that you can't do live and active collaboration. And so I actually go through all the different apps, Google Docs, look at the collaboration, spreadsheets, as well as the slides. I don't do forms at all. I just step in and demonstrate them. But what I also do is take a look at how you can use these tools differently than what's tradition. Because the moment you mention spreadsheets, everyone goes, oh, numbers. I hate numbers. And as a guy that does a lot of Google Forms, when you bring that data into a spreadsheet, then you start making use of the add-ons and stuff like that. Wow, that is just so exciting. So those are the kind of things that the training that I do. Every once in a while, I'll do a specialty one on, normalizing spreadsheet data. I've done a few on how to use Hangouts and stuff like that. But traditionally, right now, it's just my taste of Google Apps is just to get the word out.
And my kind of role is a little bit of probably a mix of the two of you. Like I said, my full-time job is a theater and film teacher, but for my district, I am also pretty much the organizer of any educational technology professional development in our district. So, but what we've been able to do this year is we have Google, a teacher from each building became a Google educator, so I've helped them with that. So I help lead and plan all the EdTech PD, which is pretty Google focused in my district. And then I also have done presentations for districts that have hired me and come in for a day or a couple of days through that process. So, and I would say I would concur with Allison. And I just did over spring break. I helped John Sowash, who's a Google for Education trainer and innovator, and he gave some really good advice, which is when you're first starting out, especially in this, is you have to get your name out there. And the best way to do that, because when districts hire people, it's more from word of mouth than directory. It can be both, but it's a lot of word of mouth. I went to this conference and saw this person. A lot of conferences is if you present a session, your registration is waived. And so if you can figure out the travel part and get your name out there, because really that's what's helped me build those connections. Also, checking that listserv, because I have gotten, like I said, I was available to help John Sowash out, and so helped him about 40 miles away from my house, and he put that out on the Google group listserv, and so that's one way. And then just from presenting at summits and your state technology conference, also ed camps and teach meets and any of those type of ones, which are a lot of fun, are great places to get the word out there and share your passion. And if you're passionate and focused, the business follows. But don't expect, okay, you just got that, and if you haven't been presenting beforehand, though, to get to the education training, you should have presented at least some, but maybe you haven't ventured out of your district beforehand. Don't expect them to just be knocking down your door. You have to, training is a people business. It's making those connections, it's networking, it's all that type of stuff. So that's just a little bit about what I've done. And so our next thing that we will be talking about is client communication. It's a really important thing. So you got an email, a phone call, a voicemail. Hi, we'd like to have you come do some Google professional development. Okay, so now what? What are some of the things that you tackle, or your first thoughts are, Allison, when you get that phone call or email?
Well, I always think about the first time, like when I know for many of you, you're just becoming trainers and you haven't gotten that call yet, and then you will, and you'll be so excited, but maybe some of you are like me, you'll be scared, like, what do I do? Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. Stay calm and be confident. But when I get an inquiry from a school, I set up a Hangout. I try to meet with them in a Google Hangout to discuss their needs. So that way I can really listen to what they have in mind, and I have a list of questions that I want to have them answer before we really get into the nuts and bolts of what the training will be and what the fee will be. So that's the first part. And just so you know, not everybody is tech savvy in the sense of clicking on that calendar link and joining a Hangout, especially administration at schools who aren't yet Google savvy. But you try for that. And if not, you just pick up the phone and call them. But I always start by saying, I'm going to invite you to a calendar event, and click on the video link and we'll chat. And you'd be surprised how many people will do that. The second thing is I just ask a series of questions. What are you looking to achieve? How long have you had Google? So we can go into that in depth or provide examples some other time. But once that query is over, then I create a proposal. And usually I follow up by sending just a Google Doc, sharing a Google Doc with them that outlines what we've agreed upon. That I'm going to train so many people. It's going to be this much money. It's going to happen on these dates, and then we just agree. Now there are times if it's like I have to travel and spend a week in Arkansas, I need a signature on that. I need to know that the superintendent has approved it and they're all on the same page. But if it's just a local district, maybe I'm just going to drive back and forth. I don't necessarily even need a signature. So it's up to you how you handle that. But if you need a signature, Hello Sign is a great add-on for that. And then you want to make sure that you schedule a follow-up meeting. Before you send the proposal, before you hang up the phone or leave the Hangout, say, I'm going to send a proposal, but I'd like to schedule a follow-up chat now. And schedule it for a week later or 2 weeks later. But make sure you schedule it so that if you don't hear back on the proposal, you'll be wondering, did I charge too much or did they not like it? When in fact they're just really busy. So save yourself that anxiety, schedule a follow-up, and that way if you don't hear right back from them on a confirmation, you'll have that time to talk. Is that what we were looking for in terms of communication advice?
Mm-hmm. I think that's great advice because you really want to, one thing I've found is if you can ask those questions about the skill level,
yeah,
and then always plan a little below and a little bit if you've got those ones who already are familiar with it, because skill level wise you will get the wide variance and you have to try to aim for that nice middle, which can be a challenge at times because sometimes it's, they don't even know how to log into their Gmail account and that's totally foreign to them. And sometimes they just give me the really cool tools so I can dive deep. And so figuring out what you need to plan for, because usually what happens is their skill level is a little lower than what I was anticipating, so you have to adjust for that on the fly. But if you can get that kind of narrowed out with them.
At a time, like a shared, do you share a doc? I share a doc with the person that's, my key point person, and I start an agenda, like the scope of the training, the goals, what we're going to include, and give them edit access. And if you have a long while before, you'd be amazed at how many revisions you make up from. So it's not like you just decide and it's done. You might revise it over and over again over a period of 3 to 5 months, depending on how much lead time you have for the training. So it's not just like, oh, we want to hire you and teach these people forms or teach our staff how to use a Chromebook. There's usually a certain level of customization they're looking for as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Trevor, what have you found in your adventures in the trainer land?
Well, it's
on your staff, okay. Trevor, your perspective is really good.
Sorry, say that again. I didn't hear that.
You said you don't generally leave. You generally do most of your trainings in house, but that's a huge audience that a lot of our trainers train from.
Yeah. So. And if they're tech integrators, which is a similar position, that's really, you're building upon things.
Well, and that's exactly right. And I mean, because we do have, it's interesting because you've got the secondary schools who have been using Google for years, and those students come into the university, and then you have all these university faculty and the admin staff who have never used it. They've heard about it, but I got to learn something, and so the challenge ends up, first of all, is trying to show them the benefits of why they should use the tools. And then from there, how you can use it. And, when you talk about needs and stuff like that, one of the needs that I recognize is I was around during the days when we switched from WordPerfect to Office. And if you were around those days, there was this big fight because I'm so used to WordPerfect, I have to have WordPerfect. And then, no, we're using Office. Well, no, I'm not going to do that. And so you have to get past those, what do you want to call them? Those hurdles.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's so if you one of the things that I liked what you were talking about is finding out what their skill level is and what their needs are. For me, I also take a look and say, what are some of the things that you do in your job and what takes up the most time, and let's see if we can't find a solution that we can work on either in the session or after the session. And one of the easiest things to do is working with a shared document, and I kind of give the scenario. Okay, we're going to go on a retreat. I want you to give me your breakfast, lunch, and dinner request. Now, if I sent that out to 100 people, that's 100 emails that come back my way. I would have to copy and paste them into a document before I finally got it to someone. So here's a link to a Google Doc. Put in what you want. And then in live time, they can see, oh, this is really kind of cool. I mean, we're all working on one document. I don't have to know which the duplicates are. So I always try and identify what their needs are, their use cases are, and try and have some information or at least an application that they can all relate to. But like Allison said, you need to find out what their comfort level is first. And then with my group, it's pretty much never used it, don't know anything about it. I came here because everyone else is starting to use it.
And that kind of dovetails into the next topic about the pre-assessment survey, how they help us plan, right?
Great segue, Allison. So what do you include in your pre-assessment survey usually, Allison?
I will share that the open-ended question at the end. I love the data. I love looking at the graphs of what skill level are you, beginner, intermediate, advanced, and I define that too for them. Like I can do X, I can do Y, so they know what you mean by what skill level are you. I love seeing the grade level that they teach. Do I have an audience of are they mostly K-5? Are they mostly high school? Do I have a room full of tech directors? That's really important. I think the most important to me is the open-ended response at the end. I ask them, what do you hope to achieve? What are your learning goals? I want them to come in having learning goals. I don't want them to just come in and go, okay, I'm here, teach me. What are your learning goals? That way I know what means the most to them. Mm-hmm. And I also get a little sense of their personality when I ask what you're hoping to take away. And they tell me a lot. I mean, some people will write a whole paragraph, and I really get to know that person. And lately I've been asking them what their Twitter handle is, because I'll go right on Twitter and I'll follow them, and I get to know them a little bit before I get there. So those are I think the open-ended questions and the Twitter handle really help me make connections before I get there.
Yeah, those are some great points, and I really like the idea of the open-ended, because from a teacher point of view, or, okay, we're sometimes, I hate this, and I think your question really answers that, is sometimes teachers feel like they're just doing their time. Yeah. I have to do 4 hours of professional development. Yours look like the least least painful. But if you ask those type of questions, then one, you know what you're walking into. It gives you a sense if you're walking into those weird situations you don't get from your communication with the client. But also, you can plan on how to win them over. Yeah. And if you have that in there, then, that's a great thing to have available. What do you include in yours, Trevor?
About 3 days or 4 days before my session actually starts, I send out a reminder, and that's where I include the link, the pre-survey or the pre-session survey. So I'm more interested in how many of these people are using the tools, because like I say, most of them don't use it at all. So, are you using Google Docs? Are you using Sheets, Slides, Hangouts, that kind of thing? And I mean, I do ask the open questions. What do you hope to get out of this? How many of you are collaborating? I love that question, because the definition of collaboration is so different. Because in my mind, it's using the commenting tool and the track changes and all that kind of stuff. Whereas a lot of people I take my document, I throw it in Dropbox so other people can have access to it. Forgetting the fact that if I open it up and go for lunch, you can't get access to it. So you're kind of locked out. Mm-hmm. So, and that to me is the big focus when I look at my sessions. If they learn nothing else, just how to use the commenting tools and the track changes to do the collaboration. That's the biggest takeaway. And I always make sure that question's in there. The open-end question I have is, what do you hope to get out of this, or what do you expect or hope to see in this? And that way I can also take a look at the level of expectations and manage them, because I mean, 3 hours to cover the 3 tools, that's a lot of data or a lot of stuff to go through when you're doing hands-on stuff. And when they're saying, oh, I want to be able to, use add-ons and do Hangouts and do all this kind of stuff, those are almost an art form in themselves, and you need to spend a little more time on it. So it's always fun at the beginning to say, this is a taste of Google Apps. We're going to explore, but this is not detailed stuff.
And I'll kind of touch upon, sometimes especially when you're first starting out, and just if it's a passion, you're going to be presenting at summits and conferences, and you get a hodgepodge of people. You don't get the planning time for that. But using Google Forms and other things that are out there, you can get that feedback and get a sense of your audience real quick. Another cool advice would be playing music during that time so you don't have dead air while you're waiting for them to fill out. I sometimes use Diane Main's Google Has It parody. It's a great one, and Diane Main has a great voice. She's a Google Certified Innovator and Trainer, so that's just a little fun part there. But get figure out your audience, asking those quick, short answer questions, or quick choose questions, and hopefully one open-ended. Take a moment to look through that to get a sense of you have this one group at this one time, and to help focus or adjust as you need to.
I would just say, just for people who are just starting out, it never hurts to always include a place for them to put their email address. And even if you're going to allow anonymity, always give them the option of putting their name in. So, and I always do first and last name separate and collect email, because you never know if you're going to want to follow up, or if you're going to grab everyone's email and share a doc with them quick. So I've just gotten in the habit of really liking to have email ready.
Which is another great thing that we can kind of touch on is exit tickets and evaluation. And this is really a great thing that will help you as a trainer and help Google work its way through to understand what's going on, what are schools focusing in on their professional development, how can Google help with that, and what ways, and help you improve your training. So what type of questions Trevor, do you normally include in an evaluation?
Oh, I didn't bring my form up. I have two steps that I do actually at the very end of the session. I put up a QR code and a bit.ly link to a form that they fill out to get their certificate. So they've taken Trevor's taste of whatever. So I get their information, their email, and all that stuff, and then I ask the question: do you want to be added onto my group and receive further updates in the future? Once I've collected that into a spreadsheet, later on that night, Formule goes through and actually emails them another message with a separate form. So I've already got their email because everyone wants their certificate. I have that for sure. And then they get an email later on saying, would you like to do this evaluation on Trevor? And for the most part, I'll have to pull it up because I forgot to. It's basically 1 to 5 kind of, rate me on a 1 to 5 kind of thing, just so I have a good idea. Was he prepared? Did he know what he was talking about? That kind of stuff. And then the open forum questions, of course. So, where could you improve? What would you like to have seen more of? That kind of stuff.
And
yeah, I'd like to comment on the exit ticket, because I've learned over the years what matters the most to me in terms of the feedback. And again, it's the open-ended responses always. And I ask them what their key takeaway is. Sometimes I ask what maybe the challenge was, but I like to focus on the positive. What was your key takeaway? How will this impact your learners? How will this impact your productivity? Anything else you'd like to share opens them up to provide some constructive criticism. And then maybe one selected response. And we were talking with Jenny the other day, and we were talking about how the data is so helpful. And Jenny's going to mention the reporting your activities and some of the questions to include in your exit form, so it makes it easier for you to track. But I think that besides getting selected responses and quantitative data, is the open-ended help me reflect and really help me shape my next training. And I have never repeated the same thing without taking the feedback and applying it to try a new approach or to improve upon what I've done in the past. So I like the open-ended responses.
Allison, I really like what you're saying about how they can take it and make it personal. Like, how can I use this, and the positive side, but it also reflects that they're thinking about the application. That's great. I never thought of that.
Yeah, it gives them that next step. So great tip.
Great to share with the person that's paying you as well, or their administrator if they didn't attend, that they can see this is what my teachers are thinking now that they've had this training. And you might even say, what are your next steps? I find that's really helpful, because then they think, oh, what am I going to do with this? And they'll write down, okay, I'm gonna study this, or I'm going to get certified, or I'm going to attend the summit, or something. Or I'm going to make a getting to know you form for my students. And it's really great to see what they take out of it, too, and what they're going to go do. So
that's really a great thing to mention. And we're going to let Jenny talk. One thing I would request, at least on Jenny's behalf, is one of those questions that's really simple and it's going to help her a lot is put a question in there. What's your GAFE domain? And that would be like at whatever school at k12.mo.us. That really helps Google measure their reach and helps with that. So if you can add that in there, and if you can add, as Allison said, adding their email, those are two great things that they can put in there. They may choose to not put it in there, but then at least we can share that information, and they're not going to be put on a mailing list, or they're not going to be sold anything. It's just to help Google and figure out the reach. So Jenny, if you can kind of touch on how that information helps.
Yes, and actually I would just add one more thing to what Allison was talking about with the wallet or the quantitative data. If you are doing the selected response, it might be interesting to do the same question before the training and then after the training to measure if anything changed, and then you can use that to talk to new districts or new prospects about how you made this impact. You went from this comfort level to this comfort level in this training or whatever it is. That was just one other thing I was going to add. Okay, and I can talk a little bit about the reporting and why we do it, because I think what we didn't realize as a team here at Google was that when we were asking everybody to track their trainings, that there was an interest in more than just, oh, I need to do this because I need to prove that I'm actually being an active certified trainer. And when I mentioned it, I think on the last couple of Hangouts, that we measure the impact that we're having with that tool across really the world. I think people were a little bit more motivated to go in there and help us understand what's happening out there. So really this tool was designed to help our team understand what's going on. We have a lot of scaled efforts going on between the trainers, the PD partners, the GEGs, the innovators, and to understand what kind of impact those programs are having, where the gaps may be, what kind of support is needed, and really just like where we can kind of scale out more geographically or in certain types of schools. So we use this data sort of in aggregate in a lot of ways to understand where we should be putting our time and energy and resources. It also helps us to justify, because there is such a large volume of trainings going on out there, it helps us to justify the resources that we have right now. So when we can say that, yes, you've employed these people to run these programs and we're putting this much into it, we'll look at the results of what's happening out there. So so I hope that helps to kind of give a little bit of perspective and context around the reporting app. And I know that there have been questions about, once you're done with your 12 trainings, do we need to continue to report? And the answer is yes, because even if you're done with your requirement, we would really like to see really what's happening out there. And if you just stop at 12, we're really not going to get the full picture. So we appreciate you taking the time to do that reporting. I know there's been some questions as well about what they can enter or not enter. There was one about students, training students. That one probably doesn't need to be reported. We're really looking at teachers training teachers, or trainers teaching teachers, and administrators. And then there was a question about, let's see, needing to provide the training materials, and how some of you train without actual presentations or materials that you can link off in the tracker. And that's absolutely fine. I think that's a great way to train. And I don't think it's necessary that you have that every time. If you do, then we would love to see it. If you don't, that's okay. You can just put NA in that area. What other questions came up? Were there other ones, Nick, that came up?
Those were the ones that I received over the past couple of days, and we don't have any specific ones on our Plus page or the others. So yeah, I would just say that an interesting thought came to my head while you were talking is, if you want, building up that wealth of knowledge, that credibility as a trainer, if you put all your trainings in there, one, you have a place that you can go to and say, hey, I've done all this. And if you're doing a lot, then that's something you could, maybe do a screenshot and show a client, this is how many I've done this year. And it's just, and you have all the Google branding around it, and so it can give you that edge of credibility, and that you put those in there. And to think that all that information you put in there is going to help further Google for Education, help provide resources, because Google Classroom is a great example, and I would suggest anyone, if you have a chance where you see feedback, put the feedback in there, because it does get read.
Yeah.
And they listen, but they don't know what your feelings are about it if you don't tell them. They added so many cool things to Google Classroom over its first year. They're like, we need co-teachers, and we got co-teachers. And I will say, like, my personal request was calendar out of Google Classroom, and so and I was at events and got a chance, but both times I'm like, can we please add the calendar? And I also did it through the feedback feature. So they're here to help us, and but they also need to know in what ways we're focusing on things, and what ways we need to be able to do that. So it's really important that you take the time.
That's absolutely true, and I just want to re-emphasize that our product people amaze me in terms of how much they use that feedback, and they really listen to what's going on out there in the field. So like Nick said, please put that feedback in. One other thing I forgot to mention is that we're looking at trying to recognize trainers who are doing over and beyond what they need to do for the program too. So as we start to roll out some program changes for the better, we're looking into ways that we can really recognize the trainers that are really doing above and beyond what's expected of them. So just continue to put your activity in the tracker so that we can find you and know who you are.
And that's great advice, because I mentioned earlier, as a result of our previous Hangout, that I was under the impression that it didn't matter. It was just, you have to log your 12 trainings, and I think a lot of trainers thought, I just have to log 12, and then they won't kick me out of the program. But now really understanding the breadth and the depth of the feedback and the information that's gleaned from the time spent inputting the data it's so valuable, and it's motivating. So I think that everyone will feel a lot more motivated to get their trainings reported, all of them. And my takeaway from this is do it that day. Like literally budget a half hour extra to stay on site and report your training while you're there, and then you can go home and not have to remember to do it later. I'm totally incorporating that into my life.
Great. Good advice.
Yes. Any other inside thoughts or forthcomings you want to share?
The only thing I would say regarding the tracker is that if you're listening to this and you're having trouble getting in, or you've recently received a notice that said that you're inactive, I wouldn't panic. We are working through. It's a relatively new tool, so we're working through, some of the initial little kinks that we have to work out. So once you do enter a training, that inactive status will go away. Also, if you're not able to get in, or if you're having issues, we're working through those right now to resolve those issues too, so you can get in there. So I just wanted to alleviate any stress that might be surrounding that as well. But that's it for me.
Okay. Before we go too far, I just wanted to share the screen here with the link. I know some more people coming on. If you have any questions, we have a document. It's bit.ly/gethelpanswers. It's a Google Doc, so if you have any questions while we're going through the last 15 minutes of the show here, feel free to enter some questions in there, and we will try and address them before the end of the show. That's all I got for that.
Okay. I'd also put in my lower third.
Thank you. So we'll be checking that to see if you have any questions. Those of you who are joining us, feel free to put them in there. And we wanted to kind of segue to one of our last points is, so some of you, this may be a whole new side business, and that would be, what is a business transaction? So school wants a quote or a proposal. So, and we were just talking about this before we went on air, because it usually, we add a new batch of trainers, and then there's the question of what do you charge and that type of thing. And it is not an easy question to answer, because there's so many variables in there. Like we said before, really work with your client on what they would like, how much prep time you need to do, if there's travel involved, those type of things. And the cool thing is, I will say, at least on the, we won't talk numbers, but when you have that magic number you're going to propose or charge them, you can use Sheets to do an invoice and just put your information on there and save it as a PDF and email it to them. And because a lot of schools work on purchase orders, and so they have to add you as a vendor. They have to, once they get that in there, you're going to have to fill out a W-9 more than likely. And then that creates, those of you in the U.S., it creates the 1099 form, because most of the time you're going in as an independent contractor. And if it's over $600, it gets reported to the IRS. And my advice to you is...
The training's at $500
now. My advice is get a CPA or a tax person that you can start working with, and they'll help you along with that. But I am not an accountant or a lawyer, so but do know that there are some procedures that you will need to follow working with schools, and part of that is the invoice process. Usually you have the proposal or bid, and then you invoice them, and then they pay you off that invoice. If you would like to be paid at the training, that's something you need to communicate with your client also, because sometimes from like my school district, checks go out after the school board meeting, after the school board's given the rubber stamp, and then they're mailed out the next day. But if you want that before then other arrangements need to be made, and that needs to be communicated with your client.
Yeah, to not like wonder, just so you guys know, I've started to put in that that payment can be made for for me to receive at the time that the services are rendered, or within 10 days, so that you kind of have a general idea of when you're going to get paid, and then it's clear. Usually, I found that the schools are really great about just paying you. Yeah. That's never a problem. Ever. It really isn't. Yeah, that's it.
And Trevor, do you have any advice or experience on that end?
No, my experience is fairly limited to a couple of different places and some nonprofits I'm working with. So that's all I got.
A few like trainings per year. You may get a couple of 1099s. It's not going to be a big deal. In my case, I got started as a trainer when the program was new, schools were new, and my business went through the roof. So I was, for the past 5 years, I've made the bulk of my living being a Google trainer. And so it does you have to keep track of all your expenses. You have to make sure you know what is, you're an independent contractor and running a business, So you have to know that when you want to level up, that there's going to be accounting costs associated with that, and keeping track of things, and really understanding when it comes tax time how to report that income and things like that. So just be aware of that.
Yeah, that's a great point there, because there are, as she's mentioning, you will hit those 1099s, and so, and if your business builds up to that, that's something you have to think about, and how you want to organize your company, because some people do it as independent contractors, or they create a corporation, or they create an LLC, and that's something that you will just need to budget time and talk with those type of professionals to see what works best for you.
And most people are new. I mean, a lot of the people that, have just started aren't even thinking to that capacity, but I wasn't planning on it either. So just to bring it up, it could happen to you.
Yeah. I mean, right now I'm still pretty much independent contractor, 1099s. For me, it's a side business. But yeah.
We saw a lot. We were talking before we went on air. I just want to briefly touch on. There's a lot of chatter online about what to charge, and we were talking about it. And it's just do your best. My advice is do your best not to overcharge. I feel like we're really pushing prices up, and I think that there's a bell curve where there's a lot of trainers out there, and a lot of seasoned Google schools now. You figure we've been doing this for many, many years. So just keep that in mind when you hear from other trainers who say, well, I'm charging X, Y, and you say, oh, okay, that sounds great. We might be looking at leveling that off a little bit. And I was suggesting that we don't get carried away trying to just make so much money. What you want to stay focused on the fact that it's a passion, that you got into it for a reason. So try to find that balance. That would be my advice about money.
Yeah, you also have to take the school. I did a couple for some Catholic schools, and their budgets aren't too strong, so I gave them probably a little bit of a discount, and they were close to me. So but don't forget to figure out your expenses within your travel time, because if you're flying halfway across the nation or world, then you have to include that cost in there with that. And there's two different schools of thought on how to include that in there, and I think both work. It's just something you need to either put that as your plane flight as part of the cost, or it's an overall package deal. You get me and my services, and all of that's included in this price, or you can break it out, whichever works best for you, but include those travel costs in there.
And keep talking about it on the listserv. I mean, it's a great place to bounce around those ideas.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget, like, Allison's been doing this since 2011. I know there's some trainers out there. Innovators started in '06, and trainers, I want to say, started in around 2008 or 9, 10 for sure, I think. So there are some who are out there, and their fees are, they've done the top, they've been doing it longer, so that their fees may be higher than just starting out. So that's just something to, it's all a big puzzle, and you kind of have to do what works best for you, and what works best for you in the district or school you're working with that's fair and equitable, that it's worth your time to do it, and also you're not breaking the bank for the district, that what services you're offering are included in that price and worth that price.
I also think this is another good segue back to, well, how do I get to that point where I'm actually going to make all that money? And we were going to each share like a random thought before we go tonight, and I was just thinking, so I figured, is it okay if I jump in right now on that?
Sure.
I just was thinking, as I was in the car earlier and thinking about tonight, how I wish if somebody said, well, if you were starting from scratch, what would you do differently? I would build my brand better. So my advice to anyone who's a new trainer is look to how the people who have done a good job have done it, like Casey Bell and Alice Keeler, and even Eric Hertz he's changed a little, but he's very consistent, and he's consistent in so many regards. It's amazing. I don't even know how he does it. But what I think that's super helpful, and that means if you're going to have a logo, like Casey Bell has a little logo that everyone knows when they see that picture, that's who's sharing. And it's fun, but it's also a great way to build identity, brand identity to who you are. And if you don't have a website or a blog where you're kind of collecting your resources and your trainings, start doing that early so it doesn't get wily and out of control. So that would be what I would. And while I'm on that topic is share, share, share. The reason you have your web presence is so you share everything. So if you do make resources, you may share it to the trainer share bucket. But I always say to people, go to my treasure trove site, take whatever you want, make a copy, slap your name on it, I don't care. And so you're sharing at the same time. And so share, 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 and build your brand, which I did not do well, so don't do what I did.
Yeah, I would suggest, second that, is build your brand out there, and sometimes, and give yourself a little bit of leeway to figure out what that is, what your passions are too, right, when you're first starting out there, because it may change, and I mean, I've kind of developed, and I know what my brand is. My brand is creativity apps and doing cool stuff with add-ons, with sheets. And it's just things that are available. We did have a question in the question page, and Ginny, you can answer this. Is it possible to change the email address used when I became a trainer? They don't want to lose access to any materials or sites. So what is your advice on there? And we'll be sure to include in the show notes.
Yes, you can. And my advice would be for Justin. I'm going to pass you off to Justin. I would email Justin, and he can help you take care of that. So it's JLACAP@google.com. Ooh, probably shouldn't have given that out over the air. Or just do the group.
We'll put that in there and are able to do that. And Trevor?
Okay.
What are your what's your
This is our random share.
Yeah, random share.
Okay, so on the website that we have available to us, there's a section there called Get Help Training. There were some videos had been started, and we're actually going to try and move forward and put these videos up there as well. There's actually some really good videos already on there. So, for example, there's how to get your domain set up, your subdomain set up. So you can watch the video. They'll tell you all the steps you need to take. Make sure that you get everything registered properly so that you can actually start using that training domain. That training domain is awesome. Not only does it give you a place for a sandbox to play with stuff, it gives you the chance to have other people come in and play with it, but it also gives you a chance to play with the admin tools and see what kind of cool things you can do with them. Nick and Allison are both, you both have your admin certification, right? Because you're the quad effective. So that's really cool. There's some really neat things that are available to that. I've helped some people, they were doing some really cool projects where they were actually sending Chromebooks out to different schools to do a journalism man on the street kind of things, different schools all across California, and we made sure that when people logged in, they had the exact same startup page with the instructions on how to handle the Chromebook and some of the different links that they needed, and that's all customizable within the admin area. So really recommend taking a look at those videos. There's also some other videos on interviews that were done previous to the ones that we're doing right now. So take the time to go through to look at those resources as well. I just wanted to take a second here just to do a quick screen share. We had asked on the survey earlier, how do you plan on charging right away? And the answer is going to be, the three people are, it's going to be a side business. We've got one person, it's a part of my job, and then so far no one has said it's my full-time job.
Yeah, I think, well, Allison definitely fits into that category, and I think really depends on your. I think there's a lot of tech integrators out there where it's part of the job, and I think that role will continue to grow. And if you have the trainer certification, then when you go out and apply for those tech integrator positions, well, that's something that's something that helps you out with that, because they know that you're able to get that information on there. And my share on the business end would be there's a cool app called Expensify. It's free, and so you can take pictures of receipts and you give it a little bit of time and it'll enter the data in for you. And you can use that to help track your expenses as you begin your new adventure. So when you meet with your accountant, you don't take in a shoebox, you just take your phone and share the information with them. So that would be my share as you may be beginning this adventure.
Could I also mention one other share? Sorry, I meant to mention it earlier. There's a Google Slam happening this weekend. There's actually a link on our Google Plus event page for this event. It's actually being held in, I can't remember where it's being held now, but if you go to our Google Plus page, you can find out about that.
Bangkok.
That's right, live from Bangkok. No, leave from Bangkok, but it's coming from, anyways.
Oh, they might run it in the Netherlands.
That's what it was, yeah. So take a look at our Google Plus page. I'll try and put it in the show notes as well, and make sure you tune in on Saturday for that, because there's always some really cool stuff. Are you guys going to be joining in for that?
Yes.
I don't know if I can yet because of the conflict I have, so I may have to opt out of this one.
So someone else might get a chance to win.
Oh, hush.
And that's really where the three of us met. Is doing the demo slams, and I think it was probably a year before I met Allison in person, and Trevor and I still haven't met in person.
We've been doing this for years. I remember, like, oh my gosh, just, I can't, what, 3 years now?
Yeah, 13.
On Saturday, for me, it's Saturday at 10 a.m. For Lee, who runs them, who starts them, it's like 10 o'clock at night for him in Bangkok. And then Chris Betcher, it's like 1 in the morning.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's getting up at all these crazy times so that we can all get in a hangout and do demo slams. You're always welcome to join. So just if you go to the demo slam page and you want Lee to invite you to slam, just +1 him and say, hey, Lee Webster, I want to join the slam, and he'll give you a link to sign up. because we're always looking for more slammers.
And you get so many great ideas from there.
Yeah.
I'm hoping mine will win this week. We'll see. It's a pretty cool tool, but we'll see how it goes. You know, Allison's always the one to beat because she just comes in there at the end and just boom, done.
No, it's not true.
Drops the mic and
walks off the stage. Thanks for playing.
Well, I'm so glad that you guys had this idea, and I am so glad that Jenny could be here with us today.
Yes, thank you, Jenny.
Super amazing. And I've learned so much from all of you in the past 3 Hangouts, and especially tonight. So, as usual, when I go to train or I jump in to participate in something, I take away so much from it, more than I contribute. So thanks for having me. And if any of the trainers ever want to reach out to me and ask questions, I'm an open book. I'll help you the best I can.
And Allison, if they wanted to contact you, what are some ways they can do that?
Just Google my name. Don't say it, Trevor. It's Allison Mollica. And it's AllisonMollica@gmail.com, but if you Google my name, you will find it, because somebody told me I have a really good Google SOE. But just email me, and I always reply.
And Trevor, what are ways people can contact you?
My website, www.trevorbeck.ca, is probably the easiest way to do it. And I got there's a contact form on the site there. Just fill that out, and eventually it gets to me. And also Google Plus. I mean, again, you can just search.
Great. And I'm probably guess, Jenny, what's the best way is the Google group?
I think that's probably the best way. Now that I've pulled out Justin and gave his email address to everybody. But I did also want to say thank you to you guys for coming up with this idea. It's awesome. I'm totally in support of it. So thank you for coming up with this idea and taking the initiative to do it. It's been awesome.
We appreciate that. And people want to get in contact with me, you can Google me, and I should be the first person with the red background. I have knocked out all the other ones, the comic and contractor in New York. I have put so much out there, and they are further on the list. You can follow me on Twitter at edtech, the number 4 for theater. You can go to my blog, which is edtech, the number 4 theater.com. And so those are some ways if you have questions, and also the Google group, the Google Education Trainer group. Post questions there, and we'll be sure to include them in the next show. And thank you all again for joining us, and we will see you all soon.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.